Well, you mentioned DoorDash. For some reason, and I don't know why, it doesn't make any sense because neither word is the same. But there was a System of a Down song called "Deer Dance."
Yep.
Every time
Yep.
I hear about,
Song.
every time I hear DoorDash, then in my mind I'm like, a DoorDash invitation to peace.
Right?
Invitation to pizza. There you go. You're rewriting the song.
It's the whole thing, really.
I didn't know you were the new Weird Al.
In this case, it was invitation to chicken and waffles.
Wow.
And it was beautiful.
That is the best. It does make me think of Worlds, because that was, even though we've had chicken and waffles a few times, I always think back to sitting with Patrick, I think it was, having chicken and waffles. Yeah.
I remember that was like the artisanal chicken and waffle place that had really great craft beer. It was right across from Origins.
Yeah, the comfort. And sadly, it's tainted by our desire to go back the following year and walking up to the door to find out that it was permanently closed.
Yeah, and it would had just closed. Like there's a recent notice where it's like, this place is now closed. I'm like, what? What do you mean this is now closed? Hold on.
I just got here. What do you mean?
But we made up for it by walking across the bridge into Quebec when we were searching for late night chicken and waffles at Canadian Nationals a couple of years later, right?
That's a good point. Yes, where I think it was Asia and Steve had put us on to that place across the bridge. So thank you guys for that.
That was worth the walk for sure. Oh my
it was
god.
worth the walk the first time. The second time, not so much. I think I got like a half a waffle and some chicken when we went the second time.
I think I only went the first.
Oh, you got lucky on that one.
The other night, I discovered something really fascinating. I can't eat at 11 o'clock p.m. and sleep well anymore.
No, it's all over.
I'm getting old.
Welcome to my life. Okay.
I say that with the big gray bushy beard now.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, what's going on here? What are the signs that I'm old?
No good. No good.
I'm not sharing any of my youth with you people.
You don't get to share. We're gonna take it.
Yeah, hoard it while you can.
We need Mike Payne back. We need a Ginger back on this show so we can start stealing souls again. It's the second he was gone, I started going massively gray. It's a sign. He got all he needed out of me.
Jen, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was say Jen looked at the top of my head the other day and she said, "Hey, I just realized out of what little hair is left on your head, there is nothing but silver and gray." I'm like,
Okay. Kind
love
of
you. Does that mean you'll give me the ring back? Is that what's happening right now?
So now that we've alienated all of our young audience, which I don't think exists, we're live on the Metal Lab. We have been for a bit talking about how old we are and chicken and waffles. So that's a typical fare of our life. I'm joined by Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Cheers, everyone.
I'm joined by Mike.
Hello.
And I'm joined by Jay.
Hi.
And so we've gotten through all the cartography we can. We've gone through all the starters that are coming up. This week we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the future. I swear we can almost taste how close the potential for games is, and we can taste the upcoming rotation, which is like basically exactly a month away today. So July 1st is when rotation hits. We've got a whole bunch of new stuff in people's hands now. Not everybody's hands. Apparently, locally in Canada, local shipments are low priority compared to international.
What else is new?
Yeah. I mean, like Canada Post is like, your package doesn't matter. Like, yes, it does.
Yes, apparently mine's being delivered by the end of today.
Oh, man. Are they... no.
Damn it.
It'll be doing that for about 3 or 4 days. The video game I got recently.
No,
Totally.
the problem is they say between 4 and 8. It's going to be 4 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Yeah. No. It's just, this is the new norm with Canada Post right now. Is you'll check your tracking, it'll say it'll be there by the end of the day 2 days ago.
Yeah. And then it'll say updated every day. It's like, it's going to be arriving on, I think mine was like May 19th and May 24th, updated May 24th. Should arrive May 19th. Hold on a second.
Wait a minute. Wait, I got to go back in time.
Yeah.
They're Michael J. Foxing me.
He gets. All right, that said,
21
we're going
gigawatts.
back to the future as it is, which is a good segue there.
Mm-hmm.
We're entering a new age, as it were. And of course, the most important thing, and the first thing we want to take away from this, is what we are majorly losing in the competitive game going forward, and it's ID cards. They're going to be gone. Not going to be using ID cards anymore. For a while. Yep. I'm not going to hold my breath that they don't come back at all, but we'll see how that goes. So we have to kind of look to this game and say, how are we going to be changing the way we've played for... we've had, maybe a small portion of the game without ID cards between Avengers ID cards and then the X-Men ID cards? It was like 2 months?
Well, was it even?
I don't think, because World's Finest ID cards overlap with X-Men's. I don't think there was ever... Yeah. I think it just went all the way through.
We were never without them.
Yeah.
It just kind of ebbed and flowed, and it's ebbed and flowed ever since, Avengers Assemble. Wow.
So, we're entering this new game. We've got to remember how to play Heroclix again.
It feels like that, though. It does feel a lot like that, because we talked about it a bunch of times on the show, where it's like we were building 275-point teams because we were leaving 25 points for IDs and maybe a map bonus and a little bit of equipment. So like it does feel like I can build 300-point teams now, or maybe like 290-point teams. Like there's still equipment out there. There's still stuff like that, but it does really change your brain. Like it was like build a team of, you throw somebody forward who is undying, who just keeps churning out these ID guys, and you win by only giving up 10 points and taking a bunch of retaliators. But now you can't do that. There's no more Cyclops to pop out to run all the way up the map to take out that retaliator and poof off the map anymore.
You only just got used to the new game, and then they changed it all back on.
Pretty much.
I feel like this is a trend with Mike. We finally get him used to, like, look, this is how we have to play. All right, for a week.
I'm the old dog who won't learn the new trick, and then I'm like, okay, all right, I'd like to do well at competitive. I guess I'll learn the new trick. And then I get good with the new trick, and I'm like, do you see what I did? And everybody's like looking at the other dog, and he's like, what is he doing? Oh, God damn it!
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Sometimes I've been guilty of doing next month's trick too early. Like there's that one year where I went to Worlds and I played that triple Superman team with the round table, and it was like, this doesn't compete that well against the zombie team base. Well then, where was this next week? But yeah, so we go into this world and we have to kind of just reassess the game to start. And what are some of the big things that you think people need to know, Tom, going forward, like just baseline level, before we start talking about figures anyway?
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to know what to comment on without commenting on figures, but I'm up for the challenge because I think it's a good challenge. I guess, it's super self-evident because of all the conversation we've just had, but it's still worth remembering because we're so ingrained to trust to ID characters, and before it was that we were trusting to possessors or resources, etc. Like, there are a lot of different ways to not start the game with access to powers and effects that you would have as the game went along. And while that is still possible, whether it be through having sideline active powers or being able to call in pogs and stuff, certainly Jason Wingard's a great example of this, but there are many of things that you can get things on the board that you didn't start on the board with. I think for the most part, what you start on the board with is what you're going to have. So that means that if you feel like you absolutely must have Pulse Wave, then you better play it. And if you don't, then you might as well just accept the fact you're not going to have it. And so again, like, it's super low hanging fruit because I think everyone kind of knows that. But I still think it's a good place to start, to remember that you don't have access to anything more than what you bring in the first place. So it's either you have to think very long and hard about the types of things that will dismantle your team, and whether or not you either have an answer for them or you just want to take your chances with it. That has always been true of Heroclix, but it has been that truth has been somewhat somewhat decreased from the first moment that the Infinity Gauntlet hit until the forthcoming retirement of ID cards. There has always been some external access to extra powers and effects of some sort or another fairly readily available, and that availability is much decreased now unless you're actually building specific pieces that give it to you. So I think that's the first thing I would suggest is remembering that what starts on your force is what you got. And that can be a scary proposition when you're so used to the utility belt, whether literally or figuratively being on the side.
All right, Mike. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, and it's connected to what I sort of partially touched on there in regards to the Colossal Retaliators. I think one of the things you have to be thinking about now when you're building your team is, it's almost like thinking you're going to get hit. Maybe not actually hit, but maybe a better way to say it is you're actually going to get attacked. And what I'm sort of getting at is one of the things we so got used to was this whole have a figure that I can have on the map that if he does get attacked, he's got longevity, he's going to be able to handle things, or he's got a way of avoiding it, undying tech, stuff like that, so that he can call out something, and that something is doing the action. Well, now, because we don't have this way of poofing the attacker, we know Colossal Retaliators are going to be much more effective. Colossal Retaliators are going to get to retaliate way more than they've been. Like, we've seen everybody learned the way to shut down Retaliators, really, right? We all learned how to poof figures off the map and basically make Retaliators do nothing. It's like they're getting a new heyday again. It's kind of good that so many of the nasty ones are retiring. Unfortunately, Tri-Sentinel is not one of them. We know Tri-Sentinel is going to get played. I know we weren't going to talk about specific figures, but it's more the other side of it. It's more the other side of it, though. As an example of Retaliators that are for sure going to get to retaliate, you need to figure out more figures that are – your attacking figures need to be more resilient. They either have to have a way of avoiding getting hit on these retaliations or shrugging off the damage on those retaliations, or they just don't even care that they're getting damaged on this retaliation. You know what I mean? It's like you got to investigate those kind of routes because, like I said, you don't have a way of sort of making people disappear anymore. So these retaliators are coming across the map. They're going to be taking swings. So you sort of have to build your team with that in mind, if that makes sense.
Yep. Jay, anything you think you can add to the conversation here?
It's hard when you put me last.
I'm last, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing is, I guess, inherently having to main force damage on characters that can actually survive. So you're shifting from. I mean, this wasn't legal when retired. This isn't legal now, but like it's a world where Haha Joker at 50 just being a call-in battery isn't enough. Like, you don't want a low point figure with longevity. You want like an attacking figure with longevity. Survive a couple hits. So, I mean, even now, like, we're seeing the characters that are very powerful but also take a while to put down, like the Captain Marvels, a lot of stop click characters sort of thing. And also, I guess depending on what your opponent's team composition is like if they have one primary attacker and some tertiary attackers, I think because they can't have one random decently low point character just do a whole turn essentially, I think tempo is going to matter a lot more. Where if you have a way of dealing tokens out well and their primary attackers just push, that's kind of their turn. Like I think at this point there are going to be teams that have 2 and maybe even 3 decent attackers all spreading it out, but at the same time, you're still going to have teams with more dedicated attackers like we're already seeing. So if you can also, depending on, you might just need to handle a lot of attacks because there are just some teams now that can do just a lot of attacking. Like there's a lot of good free action pog generating after carrying. There's a lot of you pop characters out in general, and then there's, I hit 3 attacks, I'm going to pop in a really good Trouble Alert. Yeah. Or I missed 3 attacks, pop in a Trouble Alert, and Black Vulcan is just insane. Or Brainiac and Grodd can just shut your whole team down because that trait, they can give out tokens, depending on what kind of terrain it is. As well as just like Micron. Like, there's just a lot of action after Taxi whatever the form of attacking is, there will be a lot of alpha strikes of some sort or another now. And if you can't survive that, you might need to reconsider the team.
Well, Jay made 2 points, so I can't even capitalize on one of them.
Yeah.
But I do kind of want to expand on both of them. One of them, of course, is your tent pole is no longer just a guy who brings out ID cards, which Mike and Jay both attribute. He's doing damage now. He's working for his stuff. And when he's working, to jump on what Tom said, Mike said, Colossal Retaliation is going to punish you for it. So you do have to stagger your attacks in a specific way, which means we don't just have primary attackers, we may have secondary and tertiary attackers, for that matter. You have the tactics happen more on the board again. We can start talking about those things again, and they matter. Because so often we were talking about figures like, this guy's a good secondary attacker. That's a sealed problem. Right? And a secondary attacker for a while there was, okay, we're both out of ID cards, and there's still time left on the clock. Let's start fighting with the stuff on the board now. And, that's where the secondary and third string attackers all started to come in. So we have to start thinking about every piece we put on the board. So multifaceted pieces start becoming a little bit more, pretty looking, as it were. And the conversation does return back to swarm teams, tentpole teams, one-man armies. Like, the stuff we used to talk about matters again, which is another thing that, I'm looking forward to. Have to relearn. I have to go back to, 15 years ago. Is it now? 15, 16 years ago. Like, all right, so this is a tentpole team, and I need this, and this to make it better. Another thing, too, is support characters seem a little bit more tasty to take out. Because once you can deal with the Colossal Retaliation issue, it's no longer a matter of forcing them to use ID cards in bad situations. It's, I'm going to take out the Perplexer and score in that way. So, overall, to kind of sum it up, because everybody took a lot of the big points, and I left myself in the desert for that, is that we play Heroclix on the table again, as Tom had alluded to, and we have to make more thought into how we're going to deal with more things. And we're going back into a world of a quote-unquote diverse meta. I say quote-unquote because I have no idea if something's going to dominate just yet. And I know there's conversations about some figures that are really starting to kind of show their muscle, as it were. And I know Jay has some strong feelings about that. So I'm actually going to let him take the lead, because you've played in some post-rotation tournaments and kind of seen what's on the horizon to a certain degree.
Yeah, I've played a bunch. Tom's played a bunch.
So,
I mean, it is coming down to there is a certain team that is dominating a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people already know about it. But basically, Black Widow Chase is really, 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 really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend 50 minutes doing more reallys, but that'd be appropriate.
I mean, super good would have been fine, but yeah, okay.
Just to give the viewers at home some idea, when we're not here on the show, Jay talks about Black Widow Chase in the way that we all used to talk about Felix Faust. So
yeah.
Just give you some idea of where he's at with that.
I'm going to pull that figure up on the screen for
how many reallys he would have put.
I don't want to. I wasn't going to go there, but
Jay had to quit the metal lab for a while when Faust was dominating.
Some people do have that feeling. I would not imagine they worded as strongly as that. But basically, I don't know. Do you have the Widow?
I have the figure up on the screen. So if you want to share any information about it.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, basically, the first and probably most important, really awesome thing that it does all the time is get carried and pop out recruits or initiates. And basically, let me just one sec.
It's the Web of Intrigue power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the special damage power gives Outwit leadership. And you can pop they have the same, this has the same trade craft token as we saw in the really amazing Phil Coulson Taxi, as well as Nick Fury from the same set. So she can pop out. The Initiate is okay. Incapacitate, Close Combat Expert, Stealth. It's fine. But you're really looking at the Recruit, which is Poison, 10-3, Senses Shape Change for 25 points, as well as when it starts the game, so including when it gets popped on the map from Black Widow's power, it picks a character or team ability to deal Penetrating Poison 2. So you can carry her up the map and then you pop this generic, and you say, hey, that Dark Phoenix you have, what if I just penetrating poison it? Along with pretty much everything that doesn't have Invincible. And even then, if the Widow, Chase Widow wants, she can use her other trait, which is to take off a tradecraft token and say, no standard powers, not literally printed on the dial as a color. So for this style's reference, she has 3 powers like that with the running shot, psychic blast, and combat reflexes. If this figure was the target of that, she would not have her traded stealth, her willpower from Indom, which is a whole other thing, or her leadership or outwit. You do still get to use stuff in the powers, like stop, just not standard powers contained within those special powers. And also, as if you needed more, that trait also says no positive modifiers. Yeah, the no willpower thing is huge as well because, I mean, Retaliators are single-click characters, and the amount of on-dial printed willpower is extremely scarce. As far as figures that actually get play go, top dial, it's basically Jason Wingard and Happy Hogan. There's a couple characters that get it later, but basically you're just not using willpower. The other thing is just a global trait. If she's on a theme team, or if you have at least 2 other characters from the Black Widow movie set, your standard friendly characters can't have their 10 plus attack rolls rerolled, and opposing characters targeting your standard characters can't have their 4 minus rolls rerolled. So, yeah, if you don't have dice manipulation, tough luck is basically the problem there. I personally had a recent game where basically I had an attack roll. I hit some things, but not everything, on an energy explosion. I had 2 probs, but then it was like, oh, so I could use a prob, make myself miss everything, and be able to do little or nothing about it. So that's nice. And then also, in addition to their high attack rolls not being able to be rerolled, there's also just a lot of effects that trigger off of those 10 plus sort of attack rolls, like all the Infinity Gem effects, where if you roll 10 plus, you get an effect depending on what you have. And there's some, but not a lot of Avengers that have that trait. I don't think any spy keyword characters. But honestly, the problem there is more you can't reroll those low attack rolls. And there are basically 2 D6 manipulation characters, Q in question, Q being one that she can carry poison to death quite easily. And then depending on what you're playing her with, like 2 Captain Marvels is the popular thing, you get 2 Chewies. So you're going across the map. Basically, the play is you carry Widow with one of the Captain Marvels, maybe you get to Hypersonic with the other, so you're doing essentially 2 ping damage, and then you have 2 flirting attacks, poison from the recruit, and then you probably get a troublemaker, or a troublert if you really miss that many times, but honestly both are good, because Black Vulcan also has penetrating poison, as well as penetrating poison and penetrating energy explosion. Or, depending on what you want, Grodd has Mind Control, and Brainiac has Triple Target, Incap, and Outwit. And then they both have a trait where, depending on if characters are on elevated within 4 of Brainiac, you roll a d6. On a 3-4, they take tokens. 5-6, they take penetrating. Grodd has the same thing, but for hindering. So basically, you're running across the map. You're doing like 2 different ping damages. You're doing a million attacks. And then every character on your force has Captain Marvel has 2 stop clicks. Widow has the stop click and heal off a bit. So that's one team that's been pretty dominant.
Amber, your excitement for the Chase Black Widow is clearly justified.
Oh yeah, she's. I really don't want to say oppressive, but she really just shuts down so much stuff. Like I know we were all excited about that Mandarin guy. Remember that guy?
Yeah, he was cool looking.
Yeah, he was cool, and Widow kind of says he does literally nothing. Amazo has no dial. But honestly, my main problem with the figure is the just in general. It's not just this figure, but it kind of exacerbates the issue. There is so much stuff you can do after you cross the map now. Like, obviously, it's not as bad as Sam Cap crossing the map, calling it Hawkeye. But even on an Avengers team, you could carry over a bunch of characters of the Voyager. You could have Black Widow or Captain Marvel, Medusa, Micron because of Steve Rogers, and then you get a troubler, troublemaker, and you make so many attacks, maybe you get both. That is honestly a possibility. And like I said, and there's just a lot of unthemed Micron teams. Like you can carry a Micron and Atom, and they do stuff after Taxi. I know Tom played. Was it Shield or Avengers theme?
Mine was Shield.
Yeah,
talking me into Avengers would have been a better call, and it probably would have been, but Shield was not.
Because what did you have? You had
anyway,
Brilliant and the Shield officer that does stuff after being taxied.
Yeah, I'll leave it for the rest of us, Jay.
Yeah, I know. I love Jay complains about being the last one to go on the last topic. I let him go first. I just said to just kind of cover the Black Widow, but and I didn't want you to dissect the figure.
The Black Widow.
Geez, I've seen more Black Widow than I think I'm allowed to see in an R-rated movie.
The problem with going over Black Widow is that she does 100 different things.
Like I think Jay's convinced me to quit Heroclix. Really, that's what that thing was. Unless I want to play Black Widow.
All right, listen, guys. We're going to be moving into an entertainment podcast now. We're going to talk about comic, but no, just kidding.
Wait, you're kicking me off the call.
Right?
This is retirement lab.
Yeah. All right.
You should go next, Jason.
I guess I should. I'm depressed now.
I mean, don't go last twice. That would be unfair.
That would be unfair. But we're kind of starting to talk about what's going in and what's new and what's going to just enter into the metagame, and we're going to be kind of seeing. So the Black Widow is obviously one of the things, and of course that team is obviously going to give a hard time to my friend Dr. Doom. So
yeah.
I have had a chance to give that figure a number of tries. Our patrons already know how much fun I have with that. Tune in on Wednesday, guys. You'll see me have some more fun with that, or just see me have some fun. But honestly, there's a lot going on that has just recently come out. The Black Widow, obviously, with the recruits, with herself, is a potent piece in itself. And it's one of those things to consider because, like Jay, there's a lot going on with what the figure does. In addition to which, it's not a figure that you can just outright kill. It's like, oh, I'm just going to blast the Black Widow out of the water. Well, okay. Congratulations. I'm now restarting my dial. Because if you kill her right out of the gate, she goes back to click 2. So you've done 1 damage effectively and removed the tradecraft tokens. She's still got an effective
which does mean a lot.
That's huge, though. That's the point. That's really your only strategy against her. Is to get rid of the tradecraft token
and probably expose something that does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think actually 1, 2, 3. You have to do 6 damage to do this. So that's a heck of an exposure you've done to get that lead off of it, right? So, and as Jay said, you can build Avengers theme teams, get those maps, get the lead, and get those characters out there where you need them. So you gotta look to what you can put on board to deal with that, obviously. And I was not ready, as you can see. I was going to just riff off of you guys as I usually do.
You can pass it on if you want. But
what's that?
You can pass it on.
No. But a number of the things that I have been looking at, because the Colossal Retaliation has become a conversation again, I am going back to old Jason and kind of revisiting bystanders and bringing things on the board that I don't care about to kind of be my attackers. Because if you retaliate on a bystander token, you've removed a bystander token, which in a certain number of cases, not necessarily the Wind Guard, but some other cases like the Earth X Iron Man or Isaac as an example, you kill that token with your Colossal Retaliation. You've scored nothing. I can get it back. And I could probably now get to your Colossal Retaliator as well. Mm-hmm. So if I damage or doing it or performing attacks rather with things that you're not too worried about becomes a little bit more ideal. And I'm talking directly dealing with Colossal Retaliation's options too. As well, we're not necessarily out of the water with poofing a character. You're just poofing them and changing them something and shifting focus. Because if I attack with... We'll use the Black Widow shifting focus as an example. There is also the Iron Man, I think, currently in the modern game.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so Black Widow or Iron Man, they can perform your attack. You change them. They're no longer the same one that did the attack, and you can't retaliate on that one.
Captain America is in that boat.
I was just going to say, we had Captain America.
Secret Battle Wars.
Right, Secret Battle World. Yep.
Shameful of me that I forgot Lieutenant Commander Data. Sorry.
Oh, and Data, there's a wharf. I mean, the wharf.
45
Son of a bitch.
The Wharf is the Wharf.
Yeah, there's also Warp. Let's not talk about Warp.
The Wharf was the Wharf.
Let's not talk about Wharf like they don't talk about the lack of ridges in the old Klingons.
Hey, let's not forget about Captain Marvel shifting focus, which does exist, even though no one
Go
ever
for
play
it. Take it away from me on that. But yes, there's a Captain Marvel from the Captain Marvel movie set. I kind of pulled a mic and missed a couple movie sets in there. Black Widow I didn't, thank goodness, but I missed out on Captain Marvel and Thor Ragnarok. Because I guess stores locally didn't. The stores within my little area of effect, I didn't get them.
Oh, and Elektra. There's also Elektra. There's a lot of shifting focus.
Wow.
What?
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a new Elektra. Jeez, Louise.
Oh yeah, she was shifting focus before too. That's fine.
So
I haven't played her even once, but she does exist.
So I guess where I'm going is, we've got this Black Widow problem. That is its own little problem. So we go to the Colossal Retaliation problem, and this is kind of where my eyes go to address that problem. This is not necessarily. There might not even, this shifting focus idea is a good idea to deal with Colossal Retaliation, but is it good enough to play in the game? Some are, some aren't. Because you also have to account for all those other things, which is why I kind of lean towards the bystander. It's a tried and true tested method for me. I'm familiar with it. I know how to use it, and it was more or less that was supplementary to ID cards, and I think it can kind of go forward facing a little bit more in the current era. Plus, there's more guys that make bystanders, and there's a lot more options in the robot team as well that I'm looking at. Specifically in the bystander build, there's also some stuff that's just really hard to kill that can do damage back. I look to Amazo, I look to Ultron. You can drop their points pretty low, and they can do a lot with what you get out of them. So, kind of combine all that to look forward to that particular problem, as it were. Tom, in the world of problem solving.
Well, I mean, if we're talking, we kind of started out talking about pieces.
Or obvious, yeah. I mean, this the thing. It's like we're kind of in the open discussion portion. So. Yeah,
I know. I mean, we've one piece that we have danced around a little bit, but haven't spoken of specifically is Jason Wingard. So we might as well just take a moment in case anyone's listening, watching, and hasn't. He hasn't really put it together. I mean, Jason is absolutely still a very big part of this game. The retirement is not going to hurt him one bit. No. If anyone's thinking that for some reason he's going to lose a bunch of functionality, he sure isn't. In fact, he's better than ever for many of the things that Jason was just talking about. So
just kind of add on, didn't most of his team come out in the same set anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
Everything except Sentinel, yeah.
Yep. And it's still legal for reasons unknown. And so, Jason Wingard's definitely a piece that, other than, because Jason Collins has already addressed the bystander piece of that particular conversation, let us not also forget that the chain mind control thing is also hugely influential. And for that matter, mind control in general. If we're just talking, I guess, about sort of pieces and how they are representative of larger themes, I think mind control is a very big one. That's another way around your retaliation. So if we're talking about how do you solve for retaliation, another option there is don't hit your opponents, it's get your opponents to hit themselves. So, I mean, my favorite piece in the world is the Skull, and he does that really well, but I would argue Batman Prime does it even better. And he starts with mind control as well. Jason Wingard's got his cool chain mind control thing. Let's not also lose track of Onslaught, who can pull excellent double duty as both a mind controller and a TKer to basically move and use TK to steal your opponent's objects, which is a lot harder now than it used to be. And so I would, I guess, for my portion of this conversation, I'm going to focus in on considering the virtues of mind control. I think packing a mind controller is absolutely a potentially valuable thing, especially if you've got an overwhelming force of retaliators on the other side of the board. And just, one of the first points we made is the fact that you've got to pack onboard damage, and the downside of that is that it can be turning against you in a meta that currently has a lot of viable mind controllers in it. So let's not forget that that's out there and is certainly worth consideration. To say nothing, I guess, of the fact that anyone can have mind control for 5 points if you don't get your Liar Ring stolen. So there's that about it too.
Don't forget Starro either.
True.
Yeah,
so that's a great. Well, it's good that you mentioned it because I had forgotten about Starro, but I think that there's absolutely still in the conversation.
He forgot about Dre Wood. Mike, it's your turn.
Damn it, I was going to do that.
After I have broken you with the forgot about Dre.
These days, everybody want to talk about they got something to say.
Yeah, right. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. Like, this game is so wide open and not wide open all at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been playing, so I can't really. I'm not seeing enough of the current stuff to really start to figure out the problem solving of how to deal with it. I've heard about this Black Widow thing, and of course, it's frustrating because it feels a bit like, okay, here's a very dominant figure, so now am I forced into a position of building against this dominant figure? So, yeah, yeah, it's. I guess it's a good thing ultimately to be at a point in the game where I am going, oh my god, what do I build with? There's so many things, and there's a new set, and I got like. You want to be at a place where you feel like you're looking at a lot of stuff and there's avenues and freshness, but I think at the same time it's a little bit daunting, and I want to sit down and start to actually physically try stuff so I can begin to do the process of extrapolating what is working consistently, what is working once in a while, what can stop that. Like, I mean, Black Widow, like we already mentioned, you want to hit her for big damage and lose those tradecraft tokens. Okay, how am I going to do that? Well, she's got stealth. There's a good chance my opponent's going to try and keep her in hindering. So now I got to build a team that can see through stealth with an attacker or two attackers who can do at least enough damage to get her to that stop click, which is 6 damage. So really, that's what's going on for me right now, is just going back to the core again, seeing what's out there and starting to figure out what beats those things. And if it beats that thing, does it beat 5 other things? Then great, that's a team I can make. If it beats that thing, but that's the only thing it beats, well, then that's not really a tournament team now, is it? So, yeah, I don't know if I really have anything to say. I'm just yammering about how, oh god, I have to figure out how to build against Black Widow now. So,
and that's always the hard part of entering into these newer post-rotation metagames. Once you've really gotten to your comfort level, it's the anxiety of, okay, hold on a second, I have to change the way I'm thinking. It wasn't so bad with the last rotation because, a couple ID cards changed. We changed the way we were using ID cards, but that was really about it when it comes down to it. So we enter this new one. We have the anxiety of, like, is this going to last in this, like, current state of the game? Is what's going to happen with what I'm using, right? So I totally get where you're coming from because I am there. Even though I've been kind of stubborn and just, like, not playing the same way as everybody else, I look at it and go, I don't know, man. There's still a lot of things we can do. Because at times when we start talking about the way, I feel like we might have missed this or touched on it. I almost feel like we're heading back to an era where we are very close to, or we had reached, actually kind of made poisonous with the Ghost Rider team base era. And there's a lot of things like that are, like, possible now. Things like the Martian Manhunter, making things like that capable. Certain number of things that allow, like, an action that creates an action that happens after a taxi. There is a lot that you can still do on the board that is absolutely in that area of, oh my goodness, everything all of a sudden just happened. We do have to kind of brace ourselves for that and start thinking about that. How do we deal with that? How do we survive that? So, like, in a lot of cases, when things look like crazy like that, my first go-to would be, oh, what about the WWE guys? Well, the Black Widow, as an example, just walks up to you and does it anyway, so there's really no lines of fire. And it is a little bit of a crazy world we're going into, and it's always hard to just kind of readapt your thought process. And I'm there with you. Go ahead, Tom.
If I may, I know it's not exactly the conversation we're having, but I think it's an important thing. I think I would like to take this moment to remind everyone out there who may be feeling like Mike is feeling, a certain anxiety around the uncertainty of this time, that, like, there has never been a better time to try things out and to not take it too personally when they fail.
Yes.
Like, we're not playing as often right. Okay, that's good, because we're not playing a lot right now, and thus when we do get to play, it feels very precious, and that's the nature of the world right at this particular moment. But what I would suggest to anybody listening in is, don't try to build something that will beat the entire field when you have no idea yet what the field's going to be. Instead, try something you're interested in playing and pay attention to what happens when you do. I don't have any issue losing matches at all, and I would much rather lose a ton of games for the next 3 months if I'm going to get learnings out of it that's going to help me do better in the long run, as opposed to really getting myself into a pickle dip, thinking about how I'm going to try to do the best that I possibly can in any given tournament, and then kind of try to ride that thing through to the end. The meta has not even begun to settle yet. Notwithstanding the fact that, of course, the majority of the players aren't even able to play, and even those who are playing online or playing through whatever sources they have access to, technically speaking, we haven't even hit retirement yet, and so it is way too early to make any solid prognostications about what we're going to see and what we're not going to see, and as a result, don't be concerned about performance and don't be concerned about despairing over the things that you're going to lose against. Instead, take this opportunity to try to build the things that you want to try. And then if they fail, it's a good learning. And if they succeed, that's a good learning too, but you can't necessarily rest on those laurels. It's just, I think that there's a tendency perhaps when things change suddenly for some people to freeze up. And I would suggest don't freeze up, because there's the benefit of this being a game is the fact that it can be fun no matter how things go, as long as you're willing to engage with it with an open mind.
Mm-hmm. It was what I was. You know what? I just realized. We're on the YouTube. On our Facebook group, I was really bored while when I say bored, I had no company while I was cleaning up my Heroclix mess. So I did some live feeds on our Facebook page, and one of the things I shared is one of the things I'm doing to just get over the anxiety hump. It's just playing the Dr. Doom at 300 in the first competitive tournament, just so I can see what's going on, man, and so I can have some fun. Like, a buddy of mine gave me a shirt that says there is no Latvian word for lose, and it has like a big picture of Dr. Doom. I'm like, I'm wearing this the first time I go full Doom, and it's gonna happen. And I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna laugh. I might lose. I might go 0-3. I might go 2-1, and kind of bubble out. Who knows? I'm looking forward to having a ton of fun with it, and that's always the first thing you should lead with is fun. And Mike's team that he put in the bottom of the screen. Also, and I put it in the on the screen. Pickle dip is now one of our new favorite phrases.
Pickle dip.
All right. I hope you guys saw what I sent to you on the WhatsApp, because I'm gonna spring this next one on you. I hadn't planned on it initially, and I want to let Mike take the lead because he got last on this one.
Oh, jeez.
Well, can I just jump with one quick thing?
Sure. No, if you have more to add to the topic we're on, please. I want to keep hearing about it. But
yeah, there was one thing that I forgot because it was like 10 minutes ago now. The most important thing to remember is I've been keeping up and trying to build constantly, and even I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is just the other thing was that by the time, most tournaments now are post rotation anyway, but by the time rotation actually happens, we get WWE and Fantastic Four the same month, so everything's pretty much all very uncertain.
Are those coming out in July?
Yep, that is. I did double check. That's as of now. So everything says no day, but July 2020 is what it says now.
To all those custom creators, if anybody is willing to make me a Heroclix carrying case that is shaped like the Bray Wyatt head that the Fiend carries to the ring, holler at me. I'll pay. I will pay. Yeah. All right. So we're all kind of covered. So that's kind of our blanket look at the metagame. How we see it as a whole. Things we're going to have to deal with going into it. But I do want to kind of dig in. This metagame does have a past, oddly enough. And that is like the early states of the metagame. Or, there's figures that we've been maybe even failed to talk about given the state of the metagame prior to rotation. There's a lot of things that could be overlooked or things that could return because something might have edged them out. And so what we want to talk about here is what have we overlooked going into this that we might have to look at again, or what might come back, and what catches you as something that might come back. And I want to let Mike take the lead on this one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Again, mostly because I haven't been doing a deep dive of building lately. because I know I wasn't going to be playing. And I'll be honest, I've been waiting for my Justice League stuff to come in. I want to get it in my hands and look at it, and I'm a very tactile person. So,
did you want to touch mine?
Whoa, hello. But I think I can't think of necessarily a specific figure off the top of my head, but I do think that sort of pick a power utility type pieces will sort of come back up again because if, like you were saying before, it's all about what's on the map. You're trying to build teams, you're trying to cover all the bases as much as you can with what's actually on the map, because you're not going to be doing call-ins. So I think any figures that have a lot of versatility of picking stuff plus are harder to kill. See, I want to say Lockjaw, but Lockjaw's never gone away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's just
always
never
been part of the conversation.
Yeah, like if anything, people are just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Lockjaw again," and go right back to him. Like he's never really gone away. So it's kind of I have a hard time really thinking of anybody who will make a resurgence. I will say though that I think that that Spider-Woman Prime actually becomes just as useful. I mean, I used her on a call-in battery team, but honestly, she's a real pick-a-power type piece, and she's got a good power set, and she can be difficult to take out. So I think she's a figure that you should be looking at, again, as a possibility. But in general, I can't really think of any specific person that's coming back. I just think the overall mechanic of Swiss Army knife type figures, pick-a-power figures, stuff like that will definitely, anything that's been pushed on the shelf that's in that category, you should look at again.
Now, I'm going to hesitate, and I'm going to lead in with this first, Jay. Leave some for me and Tom, please. Jay.
I had a very limited... I was also going to say Lockjaw, especially because on-dial pulse wave is a very important thing now, because, I mean, yes, exospecs exist, but we already talked about a character that doesn't like pick-a-power being a thing that they're opposed to. But even so, second click, run shot, pulse wave, prob is really important, especially because that other Black Widow that shuts off improved targeting, the shifting focus. But what I was going to say other than that is, I mean, we've seen some of these figures recently, but then they kind of stopped. I'm not sure why. But basically the entire Elders of the Universe keyword. I mean, we still see Voyager a little bit on Avengers teams, but it's pretty much all of them brings lines to the table that's really good. Just last week or the week before, I played against Nate White using Challenger, who, with the correct path and correct positioning, can be an incredibly hard to kill just character in general, because he has these pyramid markers. There's 5 of them, and then basically, if your opponent hasn't gotten rid of them and he's within a certain radius of them, he can basically remove them instead of taking damage. And he's already got a 9-click tile with the extra Elders click and a stop click. So, and also just, I guess if I'm talking about the Elders, Power Cosmic matters because there's less Kobik, but at the same time, there is that shifting focus Widow with her weird smoke cloud. But still, I think Gardner attacking through terrain is important, especially because there's just a lot of claustrophobic maps or hard to move through maps like Ancient Hold and King's Tomb. Trader, especially now that equipment is even more useful. Collector, maybe. Just in general, outside of there's 1 or 2 that are obviously not great, but just that whole keyword in general.
All right. Tom?
Yeah, I've been struggling to come up with anything, and I can't, because a lot of the things that I think are going to be good already were, or already were present. Like, you know, I think of something like Duke Thomas. He never went away. Tri-Sentinel never went away. Jason Wingard never went away. Batman Prime is just arriving. You know, I wish I had a good answer. Because when in terms of pieces coming back, then there has to have been some reason why they went away in the first place. And in a lot of cases, I feel like the best stuff that's out there is either still kind of new, or is good for the same reasons that it was before. So you can tell that I'm kind of stalling for time.
Please stall for me too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's certainly. I mean, selfishly, I would like to see whether the there's any possibility of Batgirl having any sway going forward. I mean, she does have the ability to attack after Taxi, which is a pretty vaunted thing these days. Stealth means something, depending upon what you're up against, and of course, she's one of those few Trouble Alerts that is capable of being good at attacking. The same is true of Captain America Resilient, who, for many of the same reasons, is... Sorry, I said Trouble Alert, but what I meant to say is title character. Is another title character that may be potentially worth playing. I don't think either one of them were ever particularly dominant forces, but at least they were present, and it would be fun to see them again.
How about Chase Black Panther?
Yeah, I was thinking about Chase Black Panther. I like him at full points and on his map, which is still absolutely legal. I think it's pretty viable.
Well, he's not affected then by her trait, right? Because all she's saying is you can't access powers that aren't on the dial, and his whole deal is he clicks to the actual... click on the dial and accesses the powers that way, right? So she
outside
can't shut
of his
down.
power, cosmic willpower, and traded super senses,
Yes, fair enough. Those
but otherwise,
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of saves him to some extent? Like, because of Chase Widow, I'm always skeptical of anybody that big and beefy not being invincible. But at least he is invincible on the second click. So even by the time he takes the first penetrating poison, then at least he'll be on a click where he's fairly well protected. I think, if memory serves, anyway, his second click he's invincible, right?
No, it goes impervious, reflexes, impervious, invincible. ESD,
oh, that's bad. It goes straight to reflexes? Oh.
Yeah, that's why I remember when Austin played that final against Devin and crit missed, it was game over.
Yeah.
Jason, would I finally come up with a good answer, but I think you should maybe go.
No, I want to hear your good answer.
Vulture.
Dude, that's it. That thing's gone away.
That's kind of the conversation. Like, obviously, there's a few things that stick around and are going to linger like a fart. The Vulture's definitely going to be one that lingers. If not, gets a little bit more different, given the fact that a lot of people have talked about him with Steve Rogers. And, I mean, it's not necessarily the end-all, be-all. You might not even need to resort to that.
Well, the reason I say it is it's not that Vulture ever went away as such, but certainly in a world where you could pretty reliably win map and steal his arms, then it was his functionality was limited. So it was only really the existence of Steve Rogers that started to bring him back into the conversation, and then suddenly the world went into a tizzy. So I think that is why I would say that there's a figure that maybe is coming back a little bit, because there was a little bit of a depression there when people realized how easy it was to build a plus 73 theme team and then steal his arms with a call in.
Only plus 73?
I decided to be conservative. I wasn't building a Lucas team here, not one of those plus 7,000 teams.
I think the other thing too is you have to look at it this way. Like we're trying to talk about what's going to come back post rotation.
Yeah.
We're in the early part of post rotation.
Exactly.
If you're talking about stuff coming back, then you have to go to the sets that are the oldest come post rotation, and that's basically Batman Animated Series and Secret Wars Battle World, and that stuff came out at the end of 2018. So that was
doesn't exactly seem like a long way ago.
That's what I mean. That was only a year and a half ago. But this first half of the year, what have we played other than we played a little bit of stuff, and then we had this weird world of online post-rotation, not post-rotation. So, you know what I mean? We haven't had enough time for anything to really feel like it went away and is coming back.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That's really the issue.
I was really hoping we'd get more out of the what haven't we talked about that we maybe should talk about. And I don't think that really is on the list just yet. Just because nothing makes something really, oh my gosh, super ideal. Although I still hold out hope for that Caveman Iron Fist. I hold out hope. I don't think necessarily.
I think if we had this conversation again at the end of the year, it'd be different, right? Because then we'd have at least, hopefully, 4 to 6 months of post-rotation tournaments in play, and we would see what people are using to be able to go, you know what figure would do really well right now? Boom.
Star Brand.
Yeah, Star Brand.
Yeah,
Star Brand.
Right here, you heard it here first. Star Brand is remaking the metagame. Devin Owens, it's on you.
That may be beyond even Devin's powers.
Man, he got what is it? He got to top 8 with a sealed WKO with it. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, Jay, really, if you really want to go out on a limb here, I think you should go back to something you were looking at, because you already mentioned bystanders, and time is right for Stegron to come back and just be the man.
Stegron's been on my lips a few times. I actually just put away his dinosaurs with him yesterday. So.
Hope you wiped him down thoroughly.
Yeah, right.
Don't want to bring that to a game in a post-COVID world.
Stegron.
I got a few. I'll just drip him or soak him in hand sanitizer. He'll have no after the fact.
Drip them.
That's crazy.
What about Wendigo? How come we haven't mentioned Wendigo?
I think it's because he hasn't gone anywhere. He's only just showed up. We know he exists. I don't think it's something we're saying, it's going to be gone. I think he might actually get stronger.
He's already working and he gets worse.
Yeah.
Wendigo is seeing a lot of play and placing really well.
For sure.
Incredible.
It's
what I meant.
it happens to be a very good team against the Widows just because they can't bump out enough attacks and whatnot to deal with all. Caleb was playing basically a bunch of Sentinels, a bunch of Wendigos.
Yeah.
Perfect Daredevil, Sheriff Strange, just because his kit of support powers is still good enough. And that was basically it. Go on Ancient Hold and good luck.
Yeah, really, because they're the perfect complement to go with the Tri-Sentinels, right? You got a bunch of these 15-point Wendigos moving up the map, hoping to get shot at so that you can have your Tri-Sentinels come forward and retaliate. They're great. They're great. I have 3 now. Yay!
Well, I was also going to say, if the release schedule, like if this was a normal world, we'd have Origins in a couple weeks, and we would have seen a bunch more con exclusives. And by the time rotation hits, we're going to hopefully start seeing a bunch of previews. So there's not really ever going to be a post-rotation of this environment for a while. It's just going to shift so quickly. Mm-hmm. So I don't even think it's worth worrying about building right this second unless you're playing imminently. But I think it's a good time to just sit back and see what happens. Unless you are specifically playing right now.
Study time.
Yeah. Now's a good time to get that studying up. All right. So that's kind of we're going to call this the blanket overview of the potential predictions. I wouldn't say anything we've said here is particularly hard in stone. There's a lot of considerations to make, and there's a lot of things to think about for sure. So take this into your kind of your thought process, as it were, and combine it with some of your own thoughts, some of your own ideas. If you have your own ideas, throw it in the comments if you're watching later on, or you come to an epiphany later on. We are more than willing to listen to it. But if we're good to go on this topic, we're gonna move to questions.
Yeah, too.
All right. And before we do that, I want to remind everybody that we have a Patreon, and it is back and running. Today was the first day that we actually restarted everything, and it's the whole hard reboot that we did this time around. So the Patreon's been completely overhauled. I want you guys to check it out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. If you are at any valuation, you get access to our Patreon Discord, which sticks around, and you also get early access to any of our edited video, which we do have edited content coming back. That's right. In fact, today specifically, our patrons got early access to a video that we have coming up on Wednesday. Spoiler alert, we play something I have a lot of fun with. So if you want to check that out, there's all sorts of new additions that we've made to it. Myself and Amber are going to start playing a game that is not YouTube advertiser friendly once a month, and if you're in a $5 up, you get access to that. $10, you still get your action tokens and all that stuff I just thought before. But if you're the $15 or if you're $50 15 level, we little goons here are going to start playing your teams against each other. So check that out. We have nobody in there yet, so there's 8 slots available. We're going to try to get that into some of our edited content. Our whole goal is to, of course, increase the number of videos we're going to start doing each week, make it worth our while. So thank you guys very much who are supporting us right now. And if you want to check it out, patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. All right, so we're going to go to the Facebook. There's nothing in the Patreon Discord right now. If you guys are watching live in the Discord, feel free to add. But we're going to start with Michael Fedor, our alpha patron, who has a few questions here. when you were organizing your collection on the Facebook the other day, did you discover any pieces you feel you should be using more pre-rotation Modern Age? Honestly, I found nothing that I shouldn't be using because all of it was stuff that I needed to be using because I had brought it out of the containers. So, yeah, nothing really that I was looking at there was like, oh, I should be using this more because it was out because I was using it, to say the least. But he wants to go on. I'm going to let Tom take the lead on this one. Are the Star Trek nurses still the best healing support pieces out there post-rotation? See you later, Jane Foster.
Interesting question. I mean, I do. I hold. It depends on what you want. I think Dr. Claire Finn is very worth considering. Just what?
She's not Star Trek.
No,
no. But he says, are the Star Trek ones? And Tom's answering, not necessarily.
Okay. I thought you
yeah. It's a not necessarily because it depends on what you wanted of your support piece. I mean, we've got a forthcoming Sue Storm, who's a support piece who also is a capable supporter in other ways and a good attacker. And you've got Dr. Claire Finn, who provides an awesome POG that really helps your team out quite a bit. And I would argue that on a pure, support per unit points perspective, then Leslie Tompkins is probably the best one. But that all having been said, I think that the most reliable form of pure support remains Nurse Ogawa backing up either Pulaski or Crusher. So if you're putting together a team that absolutely must have support work, that's probably the best option as far as that I can think of, and Jay knows more than me, or you guys maybe have a different idea. But off the top of my head, I think basically either Pulaski or Crusher, I prefer Pulaski, plus Nurse Ogawa, are probably the most reliable form of support. But if you just want it cheap, go with Leslie Tompkins. And if you want support that also brings other things that benefit your team, maybe look to Claire Finn or someone else. So it's an even-handed kind of an answer.
I'm going to move to the next one unless Jay and Mike had anything you want to add.
There's support in the game?
Yeah, the 35-point Beverly Crusher also has leadership. She's hard to kill, and she gets free support. Claire Finn with free is good. The POG is good. With Ogawa, to reroll the free support seems like a thing, assuming they share Scientist for theme, because Scientist is also one of those, and Jason's already building in his head, I'm sure. Earth X Iron Man.
Would I do that? Have I done that?
Welcome to Pog World.
All right, I'm going to let, because Jay's a little bit more tuned in, I'm going to let Jay take the lead on this one. And then, Mike, you got to lead on the next one. But this one, last question from Michael Fedor. I hope that it gets on the show. Post-rotation, do you think we'll see more of the Prime Colossal Storm since most people were using her with the ID card? That was G23B, the Shadow King model with the Storm on it. What do you think, Jay?
Probably, because she has generally reasonable keywords, because she has Ruler, Monster, X-Men, Deity. Yeah, Deity's whatever. So basically, in my mind, Q is kind of out of the rotation for now, just because there's a lot of stuff they can kill him easily, like make a Poison Pog, make a Poison Recruit, Influence Ring. So basically, I think the Prime slot's opened up a lot. And I don't really think there are a lot of Primes in those keywords, so sure. And even off-theme, I mean, if you already have other good Retaliators and you just want to use your Prime slot on something really awesome, yeah, I can definitely see it.
All right. Anybody wanted to add to that, or?
No.
All right.
Agreed.
Cool. And Mike, you get the lead on this one. Which of the new Clix, Black Widow movie set, Justice League Unlimited, Fantastic Four, and Justice League Unlimited starter will get an errata first, and why is it Chase Widow?
I mean, you answered your own question, really. I mean,
it's not Chase Widow.
No, I wish it was Chase Widow, but I don't think it will be because
it's so gross.
Well, it's gross and you want it to be, but the reason why I see that it won't be is because of the tradecraft token.
Yeah.
The fact that it's a very clearly limited, they've made it a very specific, these are the amount of times that you're going to be able to pull this off. There's a way to hit this figure and take those tradecraft tokens off. So I feel like in their minds, they've already built in the mechanic that prevents this thing from being over the top. I don't know. That's tough. Honestly, I was looking at Surfer a little bit. He feels a little like that might get exploited. But honestly, again, I haven't been studying enough because I've been a little disheartened with the games. I don't think I've studied enough to be able to pick somebody for sure. So Tom feels like he's chomping at the bit. So
I'm just prepared to start singing, "Am I blue? Yes, I'm blue." That's your first errata as far as I'm concerned. I think Batman Prime is getting the axe.
oh yeah, well yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, he
Like,
can easily be a top 10 of all time.
In terms of just a pure oppressiveness, like I don't know that he's worse than Chase Widow. I think he is, but it's an arguable point as to whether he's worse than Chase Widow just as far as overall effectiveness as a core of a team is concerned. But as far as having a single effect that is absurdly, obscenely over effective for his point cost, then yeah, he feels like he was made to be errated.
Hey, Major Tom made it back in. So I don't know if it cut off before, but Tom was saying there's a good chance that Batman was made to be errated.
That would be the way I
that
would
would be the
characterize
prime Batman. Jay, what do you think before I get all snide?
Well, damn, Tom took my answer. But if we're gonna go off of the JLU set, all the troublemakers. Before you even consider the theme fluff part, I literally don't understand how Brainiac was printed. I literally just don't. So you have a character.
It's on a mass production printed card sheet, and then they cut it, and then they put it in the back.
This is fascinating. I would never have known.
You did say literally.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's also true. So you have a character who has facing four squares, triple targeting cap, which is pretty okay. Outwit for 10 points, pretty okay. Some of the best keywords in the game: Cosmic, Robot, Scientist, Future. Justice League is probably good enough at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all pretty okay. So you have that for 10 points. You have 10-point theme fluff, and I don't know what you cost this trade on its own. The one that I mentioned before, if characters are unelevated within 4, you have a 1 in 3 of them taking a token, or 1 in 3 of them taking a penetrating. Also 1 in 3 of them doing nothing, but it's a 10-point figure. At the very least, I think all these chases should be unique. And also the fact that you get this oppressive figure after you've already hit 3 times or rolled a crit hit. It's like, hey, I'm doing, like, when the Troublers came out, it was like, oh, okay, I missed a couple times. That's like, okay, I salvaged my turn, but it's like, we're gonna reward you for hitting. But honestly, just the theme flip part alone, and the fact that there is a dial that does anything. But yeah, I think, or maybe not even unique, like maybe one main force and then like something different for sideline. But I don't know.
Well, it turns out we're all wrong here. The winner, by 1 minute of getting the first errata, is a combination of the Yancey Gang, Yancey Pickpocket, the Doombot, and the Latverian Engineer, who all now have keywords. The Yancey Gang and Yancey Pickpockets all have Brute, which goes with their Underworld keyword, wink wink, or Underworld team ability. The Doombot now has Latveria and Robot, and the Latverian Engineer has Latveria and Scientist. I know I'm being facetious.
Perfect. Gotta errata that Latveria keyword.
Well,
I mean, in fairness, it broke the
keyword in, so that, you could play the Doombots with Doom and still use Doom's castle for free.
Yeah, I was gonna say it broke that as is, unfortunately, but yeah.
So, all right. Next up,
technically there is for what it's worth, there's a Black Widow section under errata, but it's empty.
It's empty. They know.
I don't know if that's a joke or if that means that there's. I don't know.
That's funny.
Pretty funny all the same. I don't know.
Incoming. All right. Now, next question comes from Adam Cole, baby. Who do you hope is meta out of the listed WWE Wave 2 clicks? He was nice enough to put the list for us, so I'm going to read it off so everybody has a chance. Hulk Hogan, Bret the Hitman Hart, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Shawn Michaels, Mankind, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Kofi Kingston, Big E, Xavier Woods, Finn Balor as the Demon, The Fiend, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Mine is a lot of this is I want to play with all of it, but I definitely have a two-way tie and it's my spooky boys in The Fiend and the Demon. Yes, we have a Finn Balor. Me don't care. Me love me the Finn Balor. I love Finn Balor, eh? Finn Balor as a demon is one of the coolest looking things in WWE, next to The Fiend, who is awesome looking and an awesome character. I love both of them, and I cannot wait to see how creative they get with these two dials, because the Finn Balor ones were very representative of Finn Balor, but they weren't. I wouldn't mind seeing close to them with intensity added, extra stats on there, some meat, as it were. And of course, the Fiend is just going to be impossible to kill and just going to murder things when he does hit them. So, of course, honorable mention goes to one of my favorite all-time wrestlers in Kurt Angle. And then, of course, if the New Day, Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods don't work well together, there's going to be a conversation to be had. Tom?
Jason, you poor innocent. You see, the question wasn't what you're excited for. The question wasn't
what do I hope to be meta? I want both of those to be meta.
Was the question, in fact, hope to be meta? Because if it's hope to be meta, I have a different answer than expect to be meta.
Yeah, who do you hope is meta?
Okay. Let me explain my reasoning here. Heroclix has a history of taking the pieces the characters that I think should be awesome and making them subpar, and then making the best pieces in the game Felix Faust, who I've never even heard of, and Metron, because why? So based on that logic, I expect that the best one's going to be
Bailey?
Someone who, well, not even my guess. Honestly, I'll put my money on it now. I'll bet you that the most playable is going to wind up somehow being Shinsuke Nakamura, because they won't know what to do with him that will distinguish him from any other standard brawler type.
Fair point.
So they'll just give him some interesting combination of effects that will justify playing him by being good, as opposed to justifying playing him by being distinct and unique in some way. So my money is on Shinsuke, but who I hope to be meta would be Bret Hart.
Yep. Before we move on, Jay and Mike, next time you guys both plan on being away, let me know so that me and Tom can fantasy book our signature moves on this set. Mike.
I'm going to answer it the way Tom did, which is the who I think and who I want to be. Who I think actually, and maybe this is more because I'm old school, is Hogan.
You see,
because it feels like, Hulkamania runs wild on you. He was the flagship of the WWF.
Yeah, very true.
For eons.
Me
felt
and
like
Tom
the entire
thought that
80s.
logic was going to work with Roman Reigns, and it didn't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's just where my brain would be, is like, well, why wouldn't you highlight this guy? He's larger than life. I mean, I think Undertaker's a pretty good figure in the game, and he should be a good figure in the game, because Undertaker was a dominant force in the game. So that's where my brain would go in terms of who I think. Who I want it to be, I agree with Tom, man. Bret the Hitman Hart. I was a huge fan of the Hart Foundation growing up, him and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I'll admit I would want him to have some kind of cheeky power, which relates to trashing the WWF on his way out with the Montreal Screwjob. Yeah. Maybe that's what you call it, the Montreal Screwjob.
In Canada, Bret Hart automatically loses.
Yeah,
but he wrecks everything on the way out. That's what I want, like something like
from the map.
Yeah, literally, he destroys all object and terrain on the map or something. Like he has to lay waste, and he has to do damage to a figure. Like he punched out Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
So on his way out, he KOs a figure on his way out of the map. He just picks a figure and he KOs a figure when he gets KO'd.
Well,
that's him knocking out Vince.
He did it backstage, so you could have it as the only ever sideline active power, where you could deal damage to a character on another character's sideline.
How about remove the character from the sideline. So he actually, on his way out when he's KO'd, he removes an opponent's figure from the sideline.
That would be so good now.
That really would. I was actually thinking we've never had an effect like that where we can muck with your opponent's sideline, and that would be awesome.
And that's perfect.
WizKids, pay attention to this.
Like, really, WizKids, somebody should be picking Kenny Pena. Are you watching right now?
Yeah, I want Brett to go to the locker room.
He's a rules guy. I need a game designer listening. Game design.
Yeah, let him go back and knock out. Who's the character that's giving Jason the triplicate pogs or whatever?
Isaac.
Isaac, yeah, that's it. Isaac's what I'm thinking. Brett can go knock Isaac out on his way.
Yeah, right? Isn't that great? Isn't that thematic? Come on. I'm glad you're all on board. Anyway, those are my picks.
All right. Jay?
I know just enough wrestling to make one joke, and it already happened. I was going to say I want some Shawn Michaels specific automatic win. I don't know how you do it, but they already did the Sweet Chin music. That was so good.
It is.
That was... Like, if you only have both on the same figure.
Oh, you could do the back suplex, that brief period where he was doing that as his finisher.
What was that?
Couldn't come up with anything else.
Your whole breakup was based on this kick, but no, the back suplex. That's your finisher.
or funnier, just he could do the reverse figure 4 because that's what he put Brett in when he beat him in the Montreal Screwjob.
It was a
sharpshooter. Sorry, which is a reverse figure 4. Really is. It's a sharpshooter.
It'd be funny if he could steal finishers. Anyway, go on, Jay.
It was. It's unfortunate that he asked for a Wave 2 specifically, because I'm assuming that John Cena, or I'm going to now start calling him Con Cena, is going to be a hell of a thing because.
You know, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, thanks. You're a dad, right? Yeah. But yeah.
Great, now it's in my head. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. But yeah, a Canty figure will be quite interesting now. We haven't gotten those in a little while. Randy Orton. I don't know what they're going to do for RKO out of nowhere, but
can't see me anymore.
Line active.
Yep. I think. I mean, they should give Mankind some sort of reverse shifting focus or whatever. That should be a thing. The fact that didn't happen already is not okay. Because we got 2 out of 3 identities so far.
No, we only have one identity. So
we only have the one,
but
in the one that we got, then he had the ability. He was called Mankind, and he had a power where you could basically choose a Dude Love effect or a Cactus Jack effect. Like it was Perplex and
Healing.
Yeah. I think the two.
Yeah. But I think the sculpt is different. Doesn't have Mr. Sokka, so that'll be interesting what we actually get.
Is it the brown costumed Mankind for this one?
The what?
His old brown suit?
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much.
So it's not with the white button-up shirt over top of the brown suit. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
Yeah.
He could be like a countdown click.
Yeah.
Is that what?
It's basically whenever he would be KO'd, then a certain amount of time he comes back, just like in Hell in the Cell 98.
Oh my God!
It took him to the back, and he came back out again. And later in the night, he was supposed to interfere in the main event, so even though he absolutely should have been in surgery, he was instead coming back out to interfere.
By the end of that, he should have been dead.
Yes.
Like, my God.
I just want to finish by saying, on principle, I want Steamboat or Ricky Steamboat to be as meta as possible, just to see that ridiculous sculpt as often as possible. That is so stupid.
I was gonna say, I think if we go by like pure skill, I think the top 3 would be Mike was right with Hulk Hogan, or sorry, by pure like wrestling on the show, it should be Hogan, Steamboat, Bret Hart, Kurt Angle should all be like really good.
And if only they designed the figures a little later, then when you play Becky and Seth together, then they generate a bystander at the beginning.
Oh my God!
You get a bystander token.
That's what I said. That was my joke. They generate a bystander at the beginning of the game.
Oh dear.
The man's kid.
So wrong.
You could do they could do the Medusa thing with the question marks, so you could basically just take the effects of either Becky or Seth.
Rollins. I like
perfect
it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's brilliant. Such good shit. We're past the 3-minute mark. I'm allowed to do it. All right. I believe that's all the questions we have on Facebook. I'm going to double check the chat just to be sure. I don't know where I left it. That's where I left it. Oh my God, we have a super chat. I missed it completely. I'm the worst. But Michael Fedor wants to say thank you very much, Jason, Amber, Tom, and all for the escapism tonight. You're welcome.
Rock on.
Then we have Neo Shazam. After rotation, what do you believe will be the best aggro, aggressive, get down the map and try to end the game early strategy? I think the Black Widow kind of stood out as that, right, Jay?
Yes, but there's just a lot of other options as well, like the Micron I mentioned. Medusa is still a thing. Like that arc, even within Avengers, that's a thing. But there's
I think
also
it'll be an
options.
Avengers theme because then, if nothing else, the tiebreaker is that you'll win the map.
Mm-hmm.
And Voyager is incredible for that, as is Phil Coulson. So you've got some great carry.
Well, you've got Phil Coulson, you've got Voyager, you've got Ghost Rider, you've got there's a lot of Avengers carrying.
And then Steve Rogers for utility, and also you have another sideline effect. Because there aren't enough, right?
Yeah, and you can play the Captain America title on that. You can play obviously.
You shouldn't have the keyword.
You can what?
Even though he shouldn't have the keyword on principle, but what can we do?
But yeah, you've got your Crystal, you've got your Medusa. Like, you've got lots of options to build from. So I think it'll be an Avengers variation will be the one that rises to the top if it becomes a big deal, just because you've got the theme backing it up better than I think any other theme team does.
No offense to you personally, Tom, but it makes me very happy that the tank retired, because tank would have been way too much in this environment.
Can't agree.
Wow.
Tom,
well, no, I
think
you agree with him about that it would be effective in this environment. You just can't agree with the being happy about it gone.
I just can't imagine. The thing about the tank was that, other than when it was crazy super broken at first, pre-errata, then everyone had a tank on their team. But it never really recovered. And I always felt like it should have, because I think it's really effective, and I don't know why it wasn't being built with more often. Anyway, what the heck do I know? But certainly I will ride for tank. But you're probably right, Jay. It would be pretty oppressive in this environment. That'd be a terrible thing to have.
Yeah, it's not like this metagame needs something to kind of calm it down a little.
That's what I'm thinking. Anyway.
All right. Anything you guys want to add before we start wrapping this up?
No, we're good.
All right. I want to throw an extra special thank you and sorry to Mike Fedor for the super chat.
Man.
Much appreciated. Thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/Heroclix. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jay. I want to thank you over the guys over at MajesticCCG.com. Check out the Apex Insiders, $3 a month. Get you access to some of the brain dumps of the greats in the game of Heroclix. There's some really good brains that help, that contribute to that site, where you can get some really good information from some really great players. A lot of them very accomplished, some of them out of their minds and wearing an AEW hat right now. But do check that out. Again, MajesticCCG.com. Check out the Apex Insiders, $3 a month. You can also check out MajesticCCG.com on a regular basis to find out what's going on in the world of HeroClix. And you can also check out their tournament series that is ongoing. I believe they're running online tournaments for that as well. So keep an eye on that. But it's a crazy time right now. It's a crazy world. Do yourself a favor. Look forward to the meta. See what's out there. And be good to yourself, because that's a sort of practice that will make your team better. Have a good night, everybody.